Fujifilm X100VI is the most popular camera in the world right now, and understandably, look at it. It is gorgeous. Look at those retro controls. It makes photography fun and cool and sexy again. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. In fact, it has some real big flaws that have made me so mad in the first couple of months of actually shooting with it. So this is 5 things I hate about the X100VI. And the first up is that lens at the front. That lens had been heralded as being super sharp in previous generations, but it's the same old lens. But now they packed in a 40 megapixel sensor with the same lens. And we did side-by-side pictures with the X100VI and its lower megapixel sensor, and this one's it doesn't produce any more detail. And that's because you could cram 1 billion pixels in there. You're not gonna see more detail than the lens is capable of resolving. Okay, the second thing I hate is, it's the user interface. Once you press menu, look at this user interface. Oh my God, it's so bad, so confusing. There's so many items, you can't touch it. And everything's great when you can just use the analog dials and get your settings dialed in, but those times when you do need something else, it's not very intuitive. How many people pick this camera up and know what AEL and AFL means? And that button says disp, back, and Bluetooth. That button does 3 things? While some buttons have confusing labels, this button here has no label whatsoever. Check this out, a very small, oddly placed button that is labeled with Q. I don't know what the hell Q is supposed to mean, but if you push Q, okay, well, nothing happens now. If I go, okay, push that, okay, then push Q, the very first menu item that comes up cannot be changed. It is a holdover from other Fuji cameras that have the PASM dial, but this doesn't have a PASM dial, so why is that? Am I the first person to pick this up and press the Q? It's the very first item. It should be something useful. Also, it has great video capabilities, but there's no video record button at all. This breaks every rule of user interface development in 2024. I mean, this is how stuff was developed in the 90s, and it just has not been updated for a modern world. But this is supposed to be fun and dealing with literally hundreds of menu items. That is not fun. Some of my audience is saying, well, just read the manual. What's wrong with reading the manual? Nobody reads the manual nowadays. Did you read the manual for your iPhone? No, you didn't, because it didn't ship with one. Instead, it just had an intuitive little tutorial that walked you through the key parts of interacting with it. And Apple made everything else nice and obvious, so you didn't have to read the manual. But this, you would have to read the manual, and you wouldn't want to, because it's 420 pages long. It's a 420-page manual that, by the way, is really poorly written. When the first version of this, the original X100, was designed, the manual was 140 pages. So that means in the subsequent 5 additional versions, Fuji just kept cramming in more and more features until the manual almost quadrupled in size. And now finding anything in these menus is an absolute nightmare. Here's just one example of the terrible user interface. If you want to take pictures of people, of course you want it to focus on their eye, so there's a menu item for that, right? But if you want to take pictures of animals, well, you can't. You have to go into the menu and change something. You have to go in here and turn on subject detection, but here you choose from different subjects that don't include people. So there's a separate menu item to focus on people and a separate menu item to focus on cats or birds or something, and you have to manually switch between them. The smartphones do this right. They focus on dogs and cats and people, and you don't have to select it because there's subject detection, and they just figure out what you're trying to focus on and focus in the right place. It should be that way. Or the menu should just be set up so that there's one menu item and you pick between people or birds or trains or whatever. And it screwed me up, an old-time professional photographer who's been dealing with all these crappy old menus for decades. It screwed me up because I remembered to switch to dog autofocus when I wanted to take a picture of my dog, but then I forgot to switch back and it wouldn't focus on people and I couldn't figure out why. And then I got a bunch of pictures that are out of focus, and you just have to be constantly thinking okay, I just finished taking pictures of dogs. Now I need to go back into the menu and set it back to people so that I don't screw myself up the next time. It's ridiculous. Fuji, hire someone to reinvent your user interface. Another thing, when you're not using subject detection, you need to pick an autofocus point, and those tools completely suck. See this little thumbstick here? You use it to move the focusing point around, except that when you use it in the real world, that thumbstick gets pushed to the corner, and so just about every time I pick the camera up, the focusing point is in the corner. So what I did was I switched it to touch to focus, which is not on by default somehow, and then I turned off the thumbstick completely. But with touch to focus, the same thing happened. Like at some point in me carrying it around, I would touch part of the screen, and it would be focusing in the corner, and then it meant that every time I picked it up, I had to recenter it. So now what I ended up doing was turning off touch to focus, turning off the thumbstick, and just using subject detection or the center autofocus point, and then I just focus and recompose. And that works fine, but why couldn't they develop a reasonable way to just automatically select your focusing point? The thumbstick and touch to focus both suck on this camera, just not real world usable. Another usability problem is how you get the pictures off. The main way of transferring files is still by using this tiny little floppy disk, which by the way is not included with the camera. You gotta buy an SD card. And I know lots of old photographers have been used to this, but whenever I put the camera in the hands of somebody under 30 who learned photography on a smartphone, they expect it to work a little bit better. When you say, well, get a memory card reader and put the memory card in the memory card reader and connect it to your computer and then use a tool like Lightroom. No, they never access the pictures. What we need is an easy way to get the pictures from the camera to the phone. And okay, well, Fuji has a Bluetooth Wi-Fi app for that, and that app completely sucks. I tried it over and over again. I did eventually get it to work, but even with Wi-Fi, the pictures transfer extremely slowly, largely thanks to the new 40 megapixel sensor, which doesn't give us any more detail, but it does slow down those transfers. And it's not like you can open the app up and start transferring files and go to a different app on your phone. No, your phone is locked in on that one app for 5 or 10 minutes or whatever while it transfers photos, and it's so slow that it's definitely not fun. And what I end up doing is just getting a USB-C cable and connecting that to my iPhone, and that works really quickly. But that only works with Android phones or the very newest iPhone. If you have a Lightning iPhone, like most iPhones before iPhone 15, you can't do that. This is a camera that's supposed to be fun for consumers. It should upload the pictures automatically to Google Drive or Apple Photos or your Creative Cloud, or just successfully automatically transfer them to the phone. It advertises that feature, but in my experience, it has never worked. And the fifth thing I hate about the X100VI is that it's already super outdated tech. This thing has no GPS in it. So every picture I take with my iPhone, I can see on a map. That means if I think, oh, I want that picture that we took at that park, I can just go to the map and zoom in on the park and find the picture that I'm looking for. This is not GPS tagged unless somehow you manage to get the app to work, which did not work for me. There's also no computational photography. And because the iPhone can use computational photography, that means the iPhone performs pretty damn close to this camera in image quality. And well, you already have an iPhone, right? This needs to be significantly better if you're using it for the sake of image quality, and you're just not getting that much of a difference. Finally, this is a gorgeous $1,600 camera that will sell for more than that on the used market. And for that reason, it's a good target for theft. And it includes no tracking, no anti-theft, no security whatsoever. If somebody grabs this out of your hand, it's theirs. And a lot of photographers become targets for theft because camera manufacturers refuse to give us any kind of anti-theft technology like that which is built into your phone, or even my smartwatch here has anti-theft. And because of that, there's a lot of times when I leave it at home when I should be bringing it out. There's times when you would want a camera like this, like in cities, urban places. It's great for street photography if you're not afraid of being robbed. By the way, if somebody does steal your camera, there's no security on your pictures, so they get immediate access to all of your photos. Definitely a privacy concern. Now I know other manufacturers don't have those features either, but this is a camera that is aimed at the TikTok crowd. This is often somebody's first camera after a smartphone, and their experience should be that spending $1,600 got them something better. Not something that's better in a couple of ways, but worse in so many other ways. We need to keep what's great about this, but add in what's great about the smartphone: computational photography, GPS, simplified user interface, easy file transfers. Because once you add up all those disadvantages and the need to carry around something extra, I think there's going to be a lot of Fujifilm X100VIs just gathering dust. In the comments down below, tell me what you think. And I want to say, even though this video has just been complaining, I love the X100VI. I think it gets so many things right. I think photography should be fun and sexy, and the Fujifilm X100 series cameras really capture that. Don't forget to subscribe for more honest, unbiased, unsponsored camera reviews, as well as lots of photography tutorials. And every Thursday at 5 o'clock, we critique your photos. We edit them and we tell you how you can be a better photographer, because that's what we really care about. Not the gear, but the art and science of photography. Bye.